Hey folks, this is Joey Hernandez. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. I have a little bit of a story to tell you today. Now, on an Older Gay Guy Show podcast, I often tell true life stories of things that I've done. Now, granted, those are often erotic stories, and the erotic content just wouldn't work so well here on YouTube. But I am going to tell you a story about taking chances. Now, why am I telling you this story, you may ask? Good question. Well, the point of the story is going to be sometimes in life you have to take chances. Sometimes in life you have to grab life by the balls to get what you want. Now, this story took place in the 1970s. I was sitting around one afternoon with my friend Matt, and we were talking about the Village People. The Village People was a disco group in the 1970s and 80s. They were dressed as iconic or stereotypical kinds of gay people. There was a sailor, there was a construction worker, there was an Indian, there was a leatherman. So all of these were background singers, and there was a main singer as well. And they did a lot of big dance hits like YMCA, In the Navy, San Francisco, a bunch of other songs. They were super popular, and I was very much into them in the 1970s. Disco music was my enjoyable thing to do back then. I can't believe that, but it's true. I had a high school girlfriend, and we used to go out dancing, and we'd do the disco moves, turning around and doing our thing, and it was really enjoyable. Granted, today it would be super cheesy. Nobody would really want to do that now, unless it was some sort of retro night where it was supposed to be a little bit on the comical side. But we were dressed seriously in our disco clothes. And one of the things that I did, because I was in high school and drinking age was 18, but I wasn't quite 18 yet, what I had to do in order to go out to nightclubs with my girlfriend is I went to this joke shop and I bought a mustache. And I gotta say, as mustaches go in the world, as fake hair goes in the world, this didn't look that bad. I found that the key to wearing fake facial hair is to not use too much of the spirit gum glue that holds it on there. Because if you put too much and it gets outside the border of the hair, it reflects light and you can see that it's fake. So I was always very conservative when I'd put that on, and I'd put on my mustache and we would go dancing for the night, and never did anybody question whether or not I was old enough to get into clubs. They didn't look at your ID back then all the time. If you looked underage, they may ask you for an ID, but I was passing every time. So on this particular afternoon, my friend and I are sitting around talking about the Village People and the fact that they were doing a concert in Boston that night. And my friend was saying, "Oh, I just love the Village People. I have all their albums. I have photos of them up in my bedroom. I would kill to have an autograph from one of the Village People." And I said to him, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to get you that autograph." And he's like, "How the hell are you going to do that? How are you possibly going to arrange that?" I said, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you that autograph." And he said, "I will bet you $50 that you cannot go and get that autograph." And I said, "You're on." So he went home and I went about planning what I was going to do. And I came up with this little scheme. I realized that the two newspapers in Boston, the Boston Herald and the Boston Globe, were going to be sending their entertainment people to the concert, probably to do an interview or at the very least do a review of the show. So we had both newspapers. My family got both of them. So I pulled out an issue of the Boston Globe, I pulled out an issue of the Boston Herald, and I opened them up to the entertainment columns. And each had a little photograph of what the guy looked like that was the entertainment reporter. One of them was in his like 60s at least, white hair. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work. The other guy happened to be older than I was, certainly. This was maybe when I was 18 at that point, I guess. And he was probably in his early 30s. But as I said, I can make myself look older when I wanted to. And he happened to have a mustache. That afternoon, I called the Boston Herald and I said, hello, I'm calling on behalf of the guy in the Boston Globe. He doesn't think he's going to be able to make the show tonight, but we need to get a review or a few words of an interview. Who are you sending to the show tonight? And they said that guy's name that was in the column. And I said, what time is he going to be getting there? And they said, and they looked at a schedule or something, and they said, the show's at 8, so he's probably going to get there about 7 or so. And I said, okay, great. Thank you. We might try to get, him to give us a little bit of information on it. So then I hang that up, and I call the other newspaper, and I said, hi, I'm calling on behalf of this other dude, right, from the other paper. I'm not sure he's going to be able to make the concert tonight. Who are you sending? And they said, oh, yeah, we're sending our entertainment guy. And I said, okay, can you tell me what time is he going to be getting there to do this interview or whatever? Do you have a schedule? And they looked and they said, he's probably going to get there between 7:15 and 7:30. And I said, okay, great. We might try to hit him up for a little bit of information. So I hung up and I said, okay, so the dude with the mustache from the Boston Herald is going to be going to the concert for sure. And he's scheduled to get there at 7 o'clock. So I figured they're going to ask me for some sort of press pass to get backstage, to get into the event, all those things. Now, back then, there was no such thing as going out to Quincas or Staples or having a home printer or anything like that. It was the 70s. So what I did is I took the Boston Herald and I went through it until I found the logo and name of the Boston Herald in a size that would fit into an ID card. And I very carefully used a razor and I very carefully cut that out of the newspaper. Now it looks like a newspaper, but I'm figuring it might work. So I looked at my driver's license and my driver's license was laminated in this plastic. Now I didn't have a lamination machine at all. So what I decided to do is, those folders that we used to have back in school, they were clear on both the front and the back, and you'd insert papers into them and then a plastic like binder that you'd slide down it and it would hold together in a report. So I had some of those pieces of plastic. So what I did is I took this newspaper thing, I opened up the clear plastic, I put it in there, I put a towel over it, and I put an iron on like low to medium, not too hot, but just hot enough. And I ironed it and ironed it and ironed it. Now I know it was not going to melt the plastic like lamination. It wasn't powerful enough to do that. But what it did is it just got sticky enough that it was holding there a little bit. It would end up falling right off very quickly, but I didn't care. I just needed it for a short amount of time. So I cut it out and I put it into my wallet. So I pulled out the mustache that I had tucked away in a drawer for a few years at that point. And I applied it to my face. I dressed up in a suit, went into my town center, took the train into Boston to do my interview, and I got there at 6:30. And I go to the stage entrance rather than the main entrance of the theater. I go to the stage entrance and I walk up and the guy's like, hey, you can't go in there. Who are you? And I said, oh, I'm from Boston Herald. I'm doing an interview with the Village People. He said, okay, go ahead. Thanks. And so I go in and I make my way through and I'm like, I can't believe that I'm actually doing this. And so I get close to where these stairs go up to an upper section and there's another security guy and he kind of does this and he's like, who are you? Why are you back here? And I said, oh, I'm from the Boston Herald. I'm going to interview one of the members of the group. So he said, okay, can I see your pass? So now, like, my heart's, oh, fuck, right? So I opened my wallet and I pulled that out and I just kind of hold it up here like this with the front towards him. Now this was backstage and it was pretty dark. They had some lights and stuff. If the guy wanted, he could have taken the ID, walked over and held it under a light to see it, but he didn't do that. And it said the Boston Herald. So he's like, okay, go ahead up the stairs here. And on the right are the dressing rooms and on the left is the green room. And I'm like, shit. Woo-hoo-hoo. This is gonna work great. Up the stairs I go, da-da-da-da-da. I get up to the top and I'm kind of peering into the dressing rooms, but the doors are mostly closed. And I look into the green room, and in the green room was the Navy guy and the leather guy and a cowboy sitting there with some other people that they were talking to. The green room is the room where they go to socialize before the concert. You have visitors there, your friends, your family, and then you kick them out and then you go and you do the show. So I have no idea what to do now that I'm there, right? So I figured, well, maybe somebody will come out of the green room and then I could interview them. So I'm just kind of leaning against the door jamb, right? Hanging out. And I hear a guy say, excuse me. And I turn and it's the Indian guy, right? He's holding his headdress in one hand. He's got his costume on. His name's Philippe Rose. And he's got like a binder underneath his arm, a notebook. And so I'm just standing there. So as he starts to pass in front of me, I say, excuse me, Mr. Rose, I'm from the Boston Herald. I was wondering if I could, get a quick interview with you, right? So he stops, he leans against the other door jamb and said, yeah, sure, ask away. And I suddenly freeze because I planned on how to get there, how to get the ID, how to get in. I was gonna get an autograph. But shit, I'm supposed to interview the guy. And I didn't think up any questions. So I'm just like leaning there, stammering a little bit. And he said, are you new at this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is actually like one of my first interviews. And he's like, well, let me help you out a little bit. He said, so Boston is really cool. I'm really excited to see the Boston audiences. I hear that there's a lot of energy. And he just starts talking himself while I'm standing there, right? And I'm hearing what he's saying. I think to myself, geez, I probably should have brought like a little notepad or something, right? So he just talks about Boston and about their tour a little bit. And I say to him, okay, that's great, awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Rose. Is it possible that I could get an autograph from you? And he's like, oh, absolutely, sure. And he hands me the headdress. Hold this for 1 second. And he opens his notebook and he pulls out and he's got a headshot of him. He says, okay, who should I autograph it to? And I say, to Matt. And so he writes, to Matt, best wishes. Really glad you were able to come to the Boston concert, ! And he signs Philippe Rose. So he passes the photo to me. I give him back his headdress. And I say, thank you so much, Mr. Rose. And I start to turn and I start to walk towards the stairs to go down. And I feel this tap on my shoulder. And so I turn around and it's him. He leans in towards my ear and he said, just so you know, man, your mustache is coming off. And so I'm touching it and I'm like, thank you. And I just walk down the stairs and out as fast as I can, back out into the street. I was so psyched I got this. So, of course, I gave it the next day to my friend Matt, and he couldn't believe I got it for him. And I told him the whole story. And it just proves that if you want to really do something, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you have an activity that you always wanted to do, but you're held back because of fear, screw that. Do what you want to do. Live your life to the best. Grab life by the balls. This is Joey Hernandez. Please subscribe to the channel and maybe check out the podcast, An Older Gay Guy Show. Thanks, guys. Peace.